This is Joy News, independent, fearless, and credible. And from our studios here in Accra and around the world, you're welcome to The Pulse. And coming up this exciting Wednesday afternoon, Supreme Court dismisses injunction application against approval of President Akufo-Addo's ministers and deputies describing as frivolous and abuse of court processes. Also, what can government do about the killer judgment debt choking the economy? We explore a new law set to deal with this as Deputy Attorney General Godfrey Achian-Yeboah joins me here on The Pulse. Also on the program today, locked-up investment holders hit the streets today as they demand immediate payment of their funds. The West African Examination Council chases Ministry of Finance over 50 million cedis arrears as it says delay in paying invigilators and supervisors arrears could affect this year's conduct of the examinations.
2022, the government still processed 9 Ghana cedis for the 2023 examinations, where we still have an outstanding balance of 49 million Ghana cedis.
And of course, The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Digilo, affordable, safe sanitation for all. We are live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV 125. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and myjoyonline.com. My name is Elton Brobe. We shall be back to deal with the various matters. You're welcome. This is The Pulse. It's Wednesday, and we have a very exciting package for you this afternoon. Now, let's start from the Supreme Court, where MP Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo has been attempting to use the legal procedure to halt, if you like, frustrate the vetting and approval of President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees. In the last few hours, the 5-member panel of the court dismissed the injunction application, describing as frivolous and abuse of the court processes. Well, my colleague Kwaku Asante has been in court all morning and he's here with me in the studio. Kwaku, so walk us through what happened today. Before the hearing, the NDC had raised issues about bias on the part of the Supreme Court or the Judicial Service in the way it scheduled cases. So walk us through from the morning up to when the court took that decision.
Well, so this morning, the NDC put out a statement very early on attacking the Supreme Court for what they believe was political and biased scheduling of cases. So journalist and lawyer Richard Elaskai has filed a case against Parliament and the Attorney General, seeking to challenge the process by which Parliament passed the anti-gable and also its constitutionality. So there's that case that was filed about 2-3 weeks ago. Then there's this case filed by the NDC MP, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo, also challenging the basis upon which the president had sought to reassign some ministers. Again, a brief background. The president had written to Parliament clearly in announcing that he was shuffling certain ministers. But in the public statement that was put out by Eugene Ahen, there was a part that said that the minister's appointment had been revoked. And that in the same letter, they had been reassigned. And that is what Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo is talking
And these are people like Kojo Ponkroma,
Amin Adam, Francis Asenso Boache, Henry Kote, and those ministers that were reshuffled with one deputy, Honorable Abanga. So because of this, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo files the case on the 21st of this month, seeking to challenge that process. On the 22nd, the Speaker of Parliament delivers a rebuke of the President's refusal, as it were, to receive the anti-LGBTQ bill and take it on. And in that same statement says that because of this anti-LGBTQ, because of this case filed against the ministers and the injunction application filed, I am unable to proceed and get a house. We later learned that actually there was no injunction application at the time because it was only the bare writ that had been filed, and part of the reliefs that Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo was seeking was an interlocutory injunction. But the lawyers will tell you that you cannot put an interlocutory injunction relief in those body of reliefs that was sought. But be that as it may, he later proceeds substantively to file that action, and the Supreme Court said this morning to hear that. The NDC's position is that if you see that a case has been filed against the Speaker of Parliament and the AG on the anti-LGBTQ bill weeks before the Femi Post case was filed, and the court is actually proceeding to hear the case that was filed later. It means that the court is trying to back or support the president to get his ministerial nominees through. So that is the first angle.
But I understand that the CJ has some comments on this matter.
The Chief Justice was categorical that the delay in hearing cases has nothing to do with the court. It has everything to do with parties and their willingness to prosecute the case.
Right.
So if someone files a case in court and he's unable to prosecute it, he's unable to push it and get it fixed for hearing, that cannot be the basis that cannot be a basis for anybody to claim that the court is doing something. Of course, not directly responding to the NDC, but responding to those general concerns. And later on, we'll hear from the Attorney General on what he might have done to get the court to hear this case expeditiously. Right. So back to what happened in court today. When the case was called, normally what will happen is the plaintiff will have to be on his feet or his representation will have to be there with his lawyers. Roxanne Nelson Dafemepo was not in court today when the case was filed. There was no explanation to the court as to why.
The primary litigant in this matter.
In fact, the plaintiff, the guy prosecuting this case, was not in there. His lawyer was also not there. But the Speaker of Parliament was represented by Tadio Sori. The Attorney General, who's also a party to the suit, was represented by the Attorney General himself and then the Deputy, Diana Sunabadapa. So those persons were there. And then the court, one of the officers of the court speaks to the Chief Justice off the record. But the Chief Justice exasperates because she's heard something that shocks her.
Right.
So she calls for the bailiff to come to the court immediately. And it's not also a very regular sight in court for a court bailiff to be put in the box to offer some facts to the court. So the court bailiff is put to the court to testify as to certain things he had written in his proof of service. So the bailiff tells the court, that he goes to Nick Papu Samuado, who is the lawyer for the MP, NDC MP, Roxanne Nelson Dafemepo, and attempts to serve on him the hearing notice as well as the affidavit in opposition filed by the Attorney General. And when he goes there, he doesn't meet Nick Papu Samuado. He meets a lady called Na. And now tells him that she's operating under the express instruction of Nick Papu Samuado that she should not entertain any process whatsoever from anybody. She should not take anything of the sort.
Including the court.
Including from the court. And this is what the bailiff is telling the court under oath. And that means that if this is found to have been before us, there will be perjury and there will be consequences for the bailiff. So that's what the bailiff tells the court. So the court opens up and listens to both the Attorney General and Tadio Sori. The Attorney General is incensed about it. He says that in his practice, he considers this the highest form of disrespect to the highest court of the land and asks the court to take some strong actions on that. The court does not say anything about that, but then decide to take some recess. About 5 minutes, they come back. And the decision is that because the process was actually dropped at the premises of the law firm, it is considered having been served.
Right.
And so the court is going to proceed and hear the case without the plaintiff, who was expected to be in court, to make his case. So the first hear
the lawyer for the Member of Parliament was also not present in court.
To also make the case. So he was in there as well. So they had to start submissions from the Speaker of Parliament, represented by Tadio Sori. And Tadio Sori, and I should actually talk about the Speaker of Parliament, he's opposed to the application filed by the NDC. He says that
the same application you stood on and decided not to allow Parliament to approve the ministers.
Exactly. He says he's opposed to that application because the Supreme Court has, in a number of cases, laid out the principles by which the Supreme Court can grant an interlocutory injunction. And the current application filed by the NDC MP does not meet that test.
Right.
And because of that, the case should simply be dismissed. Then they hear from the Attorney General as well, who also makes a similar case and says that by virtue of some of the things that have happened, he does not believe that the plaintiff had met the test for the interlocutory application injunction to be heard, so to be actually granted. So the Supreme Court should also dismiss that. Of course, the Attorney General himself makes copious reference to law and also explains quite in the detail why he believes that that case does not merit the favor of the court.
Right.
So the court now has to make a decision. And
in the absence of lawyer and the plaintiff.
And the plaintiff, yeah. So the court does not even go back. They sit there, confer with each other, and then the Chief Justice proceeds to write the ruling of the court into a notebook and then release it to court. The Supreme Court, 5-member panel, presided over by the Chief Justice herself. And then there's Justice Yao Asaridako. There's Justice Mariam Owusu, Justice Amadou Tanko, and then one other justice that I've forgotten. I'll get the name and then. So this 5-member panel of the Supreme Court unanimously dismisses the application of the NDC MP, describing it as an abuse of the court process. We now understand that Roxy Nelson Dafamekpo on the 25th had filed another injunction application on the ministerial the ministers who have been reassigned, because in his opinion, the first one did not properly capture them.
Right.
But the court also dismissed that, struck that out, and called it duplicitous and an abuse of the court process. So the court said the injunction application, the one that had been just heard, was frivolous. That is the words of the Chief Justice. Frivolous and an abuse of the court process. And then proceeds to dismiss it.
So this is how this matter ended. And then so now before the court, and I don't know whether you have been able to understand why the Member of Parliament for South died and his lawyer were not in court today.
In fact, some of our digging shows, and I've reached out to both of them, they are not speaking to the record yet. And so, but our understanding from some of the information we've been picking from sources is that they claim that they have not been served with a hearing notice, and that they were not aware that even the court was going to sit today. And that in fact, Nick Papo-Samoado has caused for a search to be filed at the Supreme Court registry to find out whether a date had been set for the hearing. And that the registrar of the Supreme Court had decided that this morning he was going to answer to the search.
Right.
We do not have the answer to the search yet. We do not have that detail. So they were not there, but our understanding from all the things we've been able to glean is that they say they were not aware the court was going to hear the case today, of course, by way of a service on them or in terms of the hearing notice, yes.
So this is the same matter that the NDC released a statement on, the same matter some members of parliament also spoke about, and yet the claim is that they were not aware that the case was going to be heard today in court.
In fact, the claim is that officially, there will be a hearing notice. Normally, if you go to the court registry, they can give you a date for hearing and they will endorse it on the court, on your processes. Other times, the case will be scheduled at a time you are not there. So they would have to serve on you a hearing notice. And that is what the bailiff says he attempted to do yesterday.
It was
and
unsuccessful.
He was instructed that, listen, you can't do that. And so he actually just dropped it there and is considered as proof of service.
And you spoke to the Attorney General after this?
Yes, we did try to speak to the Attorney General, and he is categorical. He's excited that as far as he's concerned, the Supreme Court has done what is right by dismissing this case. The case of the plaintiff was just spurious in his opinion, and that what the court has done is the right thing to do. Listen to the AG.
And there ought not to be any manipulation of what went on in court. Even Parliament itself was opposed to the application.
On the cases that are being heard, there are those who have taken the view that some cases were filed 2 weeks prior to this case being filed, and the Supreme Court has proceeded to deal with it. The Chief Justice himself has raised issues about persons not prosecuting their own cases. What do you make of it?
Yes, I mean, as I said, it's most unfortunate that persons will file processes before the court and then fail to take an interest in it. And indeed, even when the same application for interrogatory injunction is pending has not been determined, a day before they proceed to go and file another application for interrogatory injunction, there cannot be a greater demonstration of a desire to abuse the court process than this. Clearly, it shows an attempt to frustrate the Republic from pursuing its business and all. And that is why it's necessary that as lawyers for the Republic, we take a keen interest in whatever happens and make sure that such things are dealt with so that the state business can proceed. On record in Parliament is a letter that I wrote to the Speaker asking him to reconsider his decision and all. So I expect Parliament, after having come to the Supreme Court to oppose this application, to also reconvene and deal with the matter relating to the approval of the ministers. There's nothing at all that impedes or inhibits Parliament from doing its work. They ought to do their work. And I think that the adjournment of proceedings was most unjustified, yes, and uncalled for.
Right, so Kwaku Asante is still here with me in the studio. So Kwaku, there is issue about the anti-LGBT kill bill. And Roxanne has another case pending before the Supreme Court, asking the court to compel the president to assent to it, even though there's a matter before the same court. Did the AG speak to this matter?
So when it comes to the mandamus application that has been filed by Roxanne Nelson Dafamekpo, the court is yet to set a date for that. So that is still pending. But it's a case filed by legal practitioner and journalist Richard Elaskai, which is seeking to stop the hands of the president from taking any action. And in fact, the president has cited that as a basis for which reason he's unable to receive the anti-LGBTQ bill and signify whether or not he's going to assent to it. And so I put the question to the Attorney General that there have been concerns, and the NAC have been leading that fight by saying that why are certain cases filed weeks prior to another, and the cases that are most latest, the most recent cases are rather called. The Attorney General says the court has a discretion in terms of how to settle some of those matters. And actually, when it comes to the hearing of this case, he's actually the one who got the court to hear the case earlier. I asked him again, are you going to get the anti-LGBTQ bill? He says that is not his business. The lawyer and the plaintiff would have to prosecute that himself. Listen to the AG.
The position that if Richard Sky does not prosecute this case, the Supreme Court is not going to hear it, and the hand of the president is going to be stayed on this bill up until Richard Sky decides that he takes an interest in this matter. Well,
if Richard Sky does not prosecute the matter, the application will be dismissed. The process he has filed in court will be dismissed. Yes. So, but hold on. I think that the duty to fix the date for hearing rests in the registry of the Supreme Court. And I do not understand where this business of people actually scrutinizing when applications are faced for hearing or why these applications are faced for hearing even came from. Back in the days, if we file an application in the Supreme Court of Ghana, it takes even 3 months for you to have a date for hearing. It is only after a party has made an application for an expeditious determination of the process that the matter will come up for hearing. And indeed, in the record, we show that this particular case, for the record, it must be indicated that I specifically applied for an expeditious determination of the matter. I applied for an expedited hearing of the application. So it is not the Supreme Court of Ghana picking and choosing which applications to hear and not to hear. Any party to any matter, back in the days I used to do it even when I was in opposition. So indeed, it is always the prerogative of the Supreme Court registry to face applications for hearing. And if the date for hearing has not been fixed or is perhaps too far, it is incumbent on the party to apply to the Chief Justice in accordance with the Courts Act and the Constitution of the Republic for an expedited hearing.
You file for an expedited hearing in the Richard Sky case.
So I think you should ask the plaintiff. The plaintiff is the one who initiated the action. The plaintiff is the one who initiated the action, and the plaintiff ought to bear the responsibility for the conduct of the matter. I'm not going to conduct the case for the plaintiff.
Right, so Koku, the other matter is why the AG is bent on getting lawyer for Roxanne Dafiameko punished by the court.
The Attorney General is categorical that he considers that a lawyer who has filed processes in court to instruct his assigns not to accept court documents. He says it's the highest form of disrespect. And in fact, he pressed the Supreme Court to take a decision there and then on this matter. The court declined. They did not say much. The Chief Justice said, this is a matter they will deal with it. Of course, the substantive suit is pending. Roxanne Dafiameko has so many cases around it, and I'm sure the court will get ample time to deal with it. So the Attorney General, outside of the court again, says there's no way this should be allowed to stand, and that, in his opinion, the court must assert its authority in this matter to preserve the respect and integrity.
For a lawyer who has filed an application in the matter to direct a rejection of the affidavit of opposition that has been filed by the other side, I mean, it's really, for me, gross professional misconduct. Be that as it may, the court proceeded to deal with the matter, and that is it. I think that was very unfortunate, especially as the same counsel was in the same day filing processes in the Supreme Court of Ghana. Earlier in the morning, he was rejecting processes from the Supreme Court of Ghana, and then in the afternoon, proceeded to file processes in the same Supreme Court of Ghana. And I think the processes of the highest court of the Republic ought to be respected. The dignity and authority of the court always ought to be protected and respected by all counsel, and that is the point I sought to make in court.
All right, so that's the Attorney General Minister for Justice, Godfred Yeboah-Dame, and we'll bring you more reactions from the camp of Roxanne Nelson Dafiameko, the Member of Parliament for South Dai, who went to court. But when the case was called, he was nowhere to be found, together with his lawyer. Now, some explanation, unofficial though, has been provided. The NDC, even before the case would be heard, had made some, allusions to the fact that why would the court why would the court hear this case when similar cases had been filed regarding the anti-gay bill, and yet the court will move on to hear this particular case. But the outcome of this case is that the court has dismissed it, describing as frivolous and abuse of the court process? Well, in the studio this afternoon here with me is the Deputy Attorney General, Alfred Chanyabwa. He's not here to talk about what happened in court today on a different matter. But once he's here, we'll just chip in one or two questions and get the issue addressed. So, Counsel, you're welcome.
Thank you, my brother.
And it's good to see you.
It's a pleasure also seeing you.
Right. So, this afternoon, we're going to talk about judgment debt and the steps you took to get Parliament to amend the contract law, which the President has sent it to you. We're going to find out what really is contained in this and what public officers ought to know. But, I mean, in court today, the Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, dismissed what Roxanne Dafiamebo was seeking to have the court do and to continue to hold Parliament not to approve the President ministers. Your initial reaction to what happened in court today?
Thank you very much. The Supreme Court has spoken. As the AG said, the application has been dismissed. So, legally speaking, there's nothing holding Parliament from going ahead to do the approval or otherwise of the ministers vetted. Mm-hmm. And I think in respect of how things unfolded, I agree with my boss. If you file an application and you fail to go to court, the court has various options. One of them is to make sure that is to ensure that the application is heard. Mm-hmm. So today, the applicant was not in court, and the Supreme Court, in its wisdom and in accordance with law and rules of procedure, heard the application and dismissed him.
Is it strange or normal that applicants to a case will fail to show up? I mean, when it matters most?
It is not very abnormal. It's possible that you may file an application, and when the time comes for you to go to court, you may not go to court intentionally, or unintentionally, you may not go to court. But whether you go or you do not go, it depends on the explanation that you offer. So if an applicant to an application and you don't go to court, the court can deal with the matter. Okay. For example, if an applicant is indisposed and he served an application or hearing notice to come to court, he may, through his lawyer, inform the court, because of A, B, C, D, I'm unable to. But if you are served and there's proof of service, and you decide not to attend court,
right,
the court will not wait for you. The court will proceed and hear the matter.
And that's what happened today.
That's what happened.
So if you are in the shoes of the majority leadership in Parliament, or you are in the shoes of government, what would be your advice? I know that some provisions in the standing orders of Parliament makes provision for instances where the House is on recess, but there's an urgent matter. Once they get at least 1/3 of members of Parliament to sign a petition, that will compel the Speaker to recall Parliament and then hear the urgent matter. If we were in the shoes of government, would you advise the majority to take up this course and get Parliament back to approve the ministers?
All right, Parliament, they have their own rules of procedure and how they do their things. As you said, there's a procedure where some members may want to sign on so that the Speaker of Parliament will recall Parliament. That's another way of doing it. I think this within the powers of the majority to explore such an option, or it can be bipartisan, where both the majority and minority may want to put their heads together and say, in view of what has happened, it would be for us to come again and then look at the approval processes. I think that's the way that I would advise
that it should go. Yeah. All right, so if you are watching us here on Joy News, you can leave your comments on our social media handles, on our Facebook page, on X, and of course we are live on YouTube. What do you make of the court decision to dismiss the case brought before it by the Member of Parliament for South Dai, Roxanne Dafiamebo? He was seeking the Supreme Court to continue to allow Parliament not to approve of the President ministers until the determination of the matter. The court says it was an abuse of the court process and frivolous. Those were the words used by the 5-member panel that sat on this matter. Well, this afternoon we'll stay in the court, but out of the court into the office of the Attorney General. Now, a law to prohibit the payment of compound interest by the state in transactions entered into on her behalf by public officers has been passed by Parliament and, of course, assented to by the President of the Republic. The law, the Contract Amendment Act 2023 at 1114, sponsored by the Attorney General Minister for Justice Godfrey Adamem in 2023, was passed by Parliament in July 2023, but was presented to the President for his assent only on March 5, 2024, who duly assented to it. According to the Attorney General, the law seeks to curb the inimical tendency on part of public officers to enter into contracts with high rates of interest, especially compound interest, which resulted in huge financial loss to the state. This important amendment to the Contract Act was motivated by observations he made in various actions in which he defended the state in huge judgment debt cases. Deputy Attorney General Alfred, I don't know why I keep calling him Godfred, but Alfred and Godfred almost the same. Alfred Chuanyeboah joins me to unpack the law. Before we begin, though, here's the situation. So we don't have the graphic. I will bring you a graphic about how much has been spent. But, Council, again, I mean, tell me the motivation behind the decision to seek Parliament to amend the contract law and to bring in these new provisions.
All right. Now, in Ghana, there is an existing law, the Contracts Act, Act 25. And that act actually governs everything about contract, be it private or government. Now, there have been instances where judgments have been delivered against the state, and in working the interests, in view of the contracts that were entered into, the courts have decreed that interest should be awarded on compound basis. And I think the Attorney General one time made it clear. There was one instance where he had to, that was last 2 years, someone had judgment. I don't know, the person said the state was owing that entity 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. That's the NDK case. And his argument was that, having had a judgment, he had worked interest on that amount. And there was a challenge about the use of compound interest in working out that judgment debt. I don't know the day when the challenge was mounted, it came out that not more than 14,000 Ghana cedis was owed by the state.
From 1.2 billion
Ghana cedis, yes.
Reduced to 14,000 Ghana cedis.
Exactly. Now, you've also heard about the trillion that the president spoke about.
Yes. Over 10 trillion, he
exactly.
said your office had helped to save Ghana from paying.
Exactly. Someone had judgment in somewhere 2011, and the judgment was not, if I'm not mistaken, was no more than 200 million Ghana cedis. And according to him, he was supposed to get interest based on the arrangement that he had with the state at the time. So he worked out the interest, and it came up to 10 trillion Ghana cedis. 10 trillion Ghana cedis, not billion, trillion, almost $950 billion. So there was a challenge as to how he came by that figure. And then when we went through the process, it was then reduced from, they said fine, there was some computational errors from 10 billion to 3 trillion. 10 trillion to 3 trillion Ghana cedis.
Even that is huge.
That's even huge. So the AG and the officers at the AG decided that fine, let's look at a process where we can avoid such judgment debts, which arise basically because we are having to pay a lot of interest on compound basis. You know, when it comes to interest, we have the simple interest and the compound interest.
Perhaps we'll spend time to explain the two and the difference. Therein.
So this bill that we sent to Parliament, which is now law, is because of the antecedents. How we realized that people were getting fantastic judgment debts just because they were working the interest on compound interest basis. That's motivation.
So who does the computation?
Now, when judgment is delivered in court and the court says pay interest X for a period, the judgment creditor, the person who has won, he may want to file the entry of judgment or certificate of judgment. He will work it and then serve it on the judgment debtor.
Right.
So it's the person who has won the case who work it out and serve it on you. If you dispute or if you doubt it, then you also challenge it. So it's always the person who has won, unless the court says the registrar or a referee should come in to work out the interest for you.
Okay.
So every judgment is the judgment creditor who goes in to work the interest.
So we're going to go into the contents of this amended contract law. But let's say a little longer on these trillions that we are talking about. The president of the State of the Nation address said that the Attorney General office had helped to save the country from paying over 10 trillion Ghana cedis. But was there any money paid, even though you may have worked to bring the amount down? In some of the cases that are before you, that compound interest moved the amount from, I'm told that sometimes from 500,000 Ghana cedis and then all the way to the trillions. Was there any money paid in these circumstances?
In terms of the trillions,
yes.
In fact, when we were served with the entry of judgment, there was a challenge. It came to 3 trillion. And there's now a writ seeking to set aside that judgment.
This is the African automobile case?
Yes. So that matter is pending before the courts. And I think I don't want to go into detail, but what I can say is that from 10 trillion there was a challenge, it came to 3 trillion, and that one is also being challenged. When the other judgment debts that you spoke about, some of them have been paid. For example, there are 2 forms of judgment debts, legitimate ones and illegitimate ones. If there is a legitimate judgment debt, the only thing you do is to what? Make payment in respect of that judgment debt. So some payments, because no government in our history can ever say, there's no going to pay judgment debts. Because you deal with people. People work on your behalf. You have police officers who arrest people. Sometimes they go outside the scope of authority, the state is sued. People use government vehicles, they knock others, and then state is sued. A whole lot of things. So you may have instances where people have judgment against the state. And the state, upon examining the judgment, will get to know that this judgment is something that is just and we must pay. So those that are just definitely are paid.
But do you have so many on your decks as we speak?
Now, if I would say yes, because you have others like road contractors who are also making demand on the government for works that they've executed.
And government hasn't paid them yet.
Definitely.
And they've gone to court.
They've gone to
court. The court has awarded judgment against
judgment debt. So in that case, so far as there's judgment, it's a justified one because the person must have gone through due process. So what do? You just negotiate with the person to see how you can pay that judgment debt. So every government in our history has faced the issue of judgment debts. But it's about whether they are justifiable judgment debts or unjustifiable judgment debts.
The Attorney General, I mean, in that interview early this month, did not also rule out sometimes the complicity of some state actors in some of these judgment debts, because eventually it may benefit them one way or the other. I don't know whether in your dealings we've come across the situation where you can come to the conclusion and say that this was clearly an irresponsible act on this state actor that has resulted in the state paying this huge amount of money.
All right. I have not seen it, but I know there have been instances. That I have not personally seen, but there have been instances. Now, let me take you this way.
Right.
Now, if you look at the judgment debts, they arise out of contracts with sometimes contractors. When these contractors sue the state, for example, if the contractors sue the Attorney General, the writ is served on us.
Right.
And if it's about the road contract, we then write to the roads ministry or the feeder road or highways for them to get us a response to that suit. At times, you send the letters and you don't get the feedback. And you know, in court, there are timelines. The person sues you, you have 8 days to do enter appearance. If you do not do it, if you enter appearance, that one you can enter without even instructions. But your defense should be filed within 14 days. Sometimes you write and you don't get the response. If you don't get a response from that entity and there's judgment against the state, then you can say that officer who failed to respond has occasioned that judgment debt. For you may know, you may have a valid defense to that action. But because you do not have that information
at the time you needed it.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's how sometimes the AG was saying. We may have instances where state officers may be complicit. I may have instances where people may also, we all live in this country where somewhere 2010, 2011, we spoke about create, loot, and share.
Right.
Where some officers may also just want to collude with others, create some scenarios, go to court, get judgments, and then share the judgment booty.
So this amendment that you've done, what is it seeking to cure?
Now, it's seeking to cure situations where state officials enter into judgments on behalf, enter into contract on behalf of the state or the republic. And in the body or content of this contract, you have clauses relating to the payment of compound interest in default or in breach of the contract.
Is there a difference between, for example, when the court make a pronouncement and say that pay this amount of money at the prevailing interest rate and then compound interest?
Now, 2 scenarios, simple interest and compound interest. Simple interest is very simple, let me put it that way, straight line basis. So if it's about 10% on 10,000 every year, it means that every year is 1,000 Ghana cedis. If it's for 10 years, you multiply by that one, then you add it. But compound interest, where you have interest on interest.
Interest on interest.
On interest. So if the first year is 1,000 Ghana cedis on 10,000, it will mean that if we're working the second month, you won't work it on 100,000, but you work it on 110,000. So the interest will go, the rate will go up. So that's our compound. So at the end of the day, you may even have 1,000 Ghana cedis. Simple interest for 12 months, 10%. You may end up paying, for example, 2,200 Ghana cedis because it's 1,200 they're going to add. But in instance where if it's compound interest, you may even pay more. Sometimes 100,000, 15,000, 20,000, depending on the rate. But there is a law. Before I come to there's a law in Ghana when it comes to the award of interest, CI 52. In that law, when the court decrees judgment in your favor and you pray for judgment, the rule is that the court will award simple interest unless there is a provision in your contract to the contrary that you have agreed that the court should award compound interest. It is to cure this that we are saying that if you are acting on behalf of the state, our position is that for every contract, it should be simple interest.
And not compound.
Not compound.
Right.
So if you are dealing with us and you think that you are not interested in simple interest, then you better stop. You can go and deal with other countries because we know that if care is not taken and rely on compound interest and there are defaults, you get to a point where the 10 trillion, Ghana was our total GDP.
I mean, that is actually...
That's it. But just one case claiming 10 trillion out of compound interest. Now, if you take the Act 114, there are various provisions. The first one is seeks to amend Section 17 of the Contracts Act. And it's now including certain clauses or certain sections. One of them being who can have the authority or who has the authority to sign contracts on behalf of the Republic. It's detailed in this act.
And who has the authority under this act?
Now, the minister, the sector minister in charge of that sector. For example, if it's about roads and the contracts about roads, it should be the roads minister.
Previously, it wasn't like that?
Previously, the minister could do it.
Right.
Other officers could, but we just want to be very specific.
That the minister has the final authority
he has
to sign such contract on behalf of the state.
Yes. Or the minister may authorize someone to do it. So, for example, my minister may want to sign, but he's not there. So, Deputy AG, sign it on my behalf. Or he may say other officers should sign on his behalf. The third one is other officers permitted by law. For example, chief directors. They are people who work within the space of the state. So they may want to sign contract on behalf of the state. But even in that one too, they cannot on their own go and then sign contracts. They need to do some various consultation before they do it. The second one is about interest. Under this act, you cannot act on behalf of the state and enter into a contract for the payment of compound interest. If you do so, and it comes out, you can be arrested and prosecuted under this law.
Under this law.
Under this law.
Which is now in effect.
It's in effect. And if you are prosecuted and you are convicted, the minimum sentence is 5,000 penalty units.
And that translates into
12 times 5. That's almost 60,000.
And then imprisonment for
then
up to...
the maximum penalty is 10,000, between 5,000 and 10,000. Or imprisonment to minimum of 10 years and maximum 15 years or both.
And this is for those who may not have authority but may endanger the country because of their own, whatever.
It's not about
Or
authority.
this can also apply to ministers of state who have authority under this law but may do things that may not inure to the benefit of the state.
You have the authority to do it, and then you enter into that contract and then allow a clause that gives the other party the right to levy compound interest on the state. That is it. So in every contract that you are going to sign on behalf of the state, if you're a minister, if you're a government official mandated so to do, you must make sure that you go through it and see that there is no clause burdening the state to pay compound interest in case of any default.
The question for a lot of people will be, why leave the signing of such contracts in the hands of a political appointee whose tenure in office is limited?
I think that shouldn't be a concern, that shouldn't be a problem. Because if you leave, you'll be held accountable. So if, for example, as I sit here as a deputy minister, my minister authorized me to sign a contract on behalf of the state, and there is a clause in it that the state may be compelled or called upon to pay compound interest. If I leave office tomorrow, I can be called upon to answer questions. So the state, in terms of the state being represented by politicians to sign contract, I don't think that's the problem. That's why, aside the politicians, as I said, the chief directors may also do it, or you may even authorize others to also do it on your behalf. But what we are saying is that you must make sure that you do not sign any contract on behalf of the state that imposes compound interest on the state.
The bottom line, any business that anybody enters Ghana into, compound interest should have no expression in the contract.
Exactly. And there's also a provision, a section in this law, that if you enter into any contract which stipulates that the state will have to pay compound interest, that contract should be declared null and void and of no effect. So if you're a businessman, Elton, and you want to, maybe you are supplying something to our ministry, and then in doing so, I decide to say, because we were the same, I think the same school, right, and that's why let's make it compound interest. I'll be punished. But you too, you cannot enforce that contract against the state. Because the law is for all of us. You must all know that you must not claim compound interest against the state.
This clearly is to guide if you are entering the country into a contract. And it's also to guide those who have authority to do such, business on behalf of the state. Now, in the event that somebody overlook the provisions in this new act and then enter into a contract with a foreign company or a local company, and then compound interest is introduced in the provisions, and this matter is put before a judge in the court, the judge cannot rely on the provisions of this act and then rule accordingly. Is that the case?
If the contract was entered into on behalf of the Republic, and there is a provision in that contract that says that the state should pay compound interest, that bit has no effect.
Okay.
And for that matter, that portion of the contract cannot be levied or executed against the state. So the court, if it's brought to the court's attention, will never enforce such an agreement. Because our regime now is that simple interest should be the order of the day. So if you are not interested in simple interest, then
don't go there.
Don't go there.
So this has been passed. I don't know whether you've undertaken education, you've taken those who are in line of responsibility, whether you've taken them through education to understand the new order in town.
Fortunately, this law, as you said, it went to the president in March. It's now been assented. It's now a binding law. It's presumed that everybody knows the law. But this is what we are doing right now. Now that I'm on this set, people are also listening to me. And at any time there's an act or any bill or any act is passed, at our end, we distribute them to the various agencies and the ministries. So maybe the public education is what we started here, but we continue doing it. Everybody should know that this is the regime that we have now. Compound interest is no longer available when it comes to contracts with the state.
To what extent are our judgment debts causing damage to this country?
Judgment debts, I will be honest and tell you, are matters that we all need to look at critically. We have judgment debts to the tune of 10 trillion in just one case.
Bigger and larger than the entire GDP of this country.
Exactly.
The value of this country, if you like.
Exactly. There was another judgment debt also, almost close to $1 billion. That one was also a judgment that we also set that one aside.
And this was between the state and which party?
Yes, I think state. I've forgotten the other party, but it's a case that came on in Kumasi, the China jail or something. I've forgotten the title, where there was judgment against the state. We challenged the judgment. We went on the appeal process. At the end of the day, the judgment was set aside.
Of $1 billion United States.
Almost $1 billion. Yes, almost $1 billion United States dollars. You also know there was also another judgment debt in Kumasi, $50 million. There's illegal mining and all those things.
Right.
That one, you have to go to court to set it aside. So if
you went to court to set it aside, meaning the case is not, there's no finality on these matters.
Fine. If the judgment against us and we go to court to set the judgment aside and you think that the judge has erred, we also have the right to take the next step. But so far as we are concerned, that's what we have done. I know some of them have filed appeals. Nobody can fault them. That's their right so to do. But we will not sit down for anybody to get judgments. And if we think that judgment is not deserving, definitely we will challenge that judgment with all the laws that we know to make sure that our little resource that we have is protected. Ghana is a state that I can say, just like all other states, we don't have limitless resources. We have limited resources. So in the utilization of these limited resources, we are enjoined to ensure that we use it for the benefit of the people, of the state. And so if you have any judgment against us, which may be a valid judgment, ensure that in the calculation of the interest, you do the right thing. Some people may have the impression that, as for the government, if you even work it out, nobody will look at it.
Yeah.
I'm assured my brother, if you file any certificate of judgment, have in mind that we will scrutinize certificate of judgment. If there's nothing undeserving of that certificate of judgment, we'll definitely go after you and go after that certificate and set it aside.
But again, the concern here is the responsibility of the state and its actors to respect contents of contract it enter into with other people. Because the judgment that wouldn't just arise from the clouds. Obviously, because the state did not respect its part of the deal. That's how come the aggrieved party went to court and got a call to, award him or her judgment.
You are right. But to cure that mischief, now, if you look at the Public Financial Management Act, there is a section provision in that act that says that you cannot award contracts if you do not have dedicated funding for it. And so, if you're a public officer, a minister of state, or any government official, before you award any contract to anyone, you have to make sure that at the time that you were going through that process, there was a dedicated funding for it. It's one of those things that we are using to just cure that kind of, because as you said, if you do not go by the terms of the contract that you've entered into, that party also not sit down.
Right.
The person will go after you. So that law is something that I think we must all respect. And most of the judgment debts that we have, I think some of them 1999, 2000 and something, old judgment debts. But
and interest on it has built on and it's coming to where we are now.
Yes. Interest has built on. And if the interest was even simple interest, that would be something different. Because you see, if you have the judgment against you as a private practitioner, if I represent you and the judgment against you, I can tell you, Ethan, the judgment is 1 million Ghana cedis. Interest is 500,000 Ghana cedis. We are going on appeal. But because I don't want to be paying interest, if I don't do there's a state of execution, and then we even go to the Supreme Court and we come back and we lose, we have to pay all the interest up to that time. If you have the money, you pay into the court registry so that at least we are able to hold on with the interest payment. I think these are some of the things that we should be looking at. If there's judgment against the state and we have that kind of, we even want to challenge it as some forum, maybe in a court of appeal or the Supreme Court, and we want to avoid paying future interest. We may want to do that.
But has there been an occasion where the state negotiated behind the scenes with a party that are taking the state to court to come to some kind of an acceptable figure?
There have been many instances. You see, you can have post-judgment settlement, where there's a judgment against the state, but you realize that the person is entitled to X, Y, Z, but you may want to negotiate with him that you're entitled to X, Y, Z. The state cannot pay. Please, can you agree to pay X, Y minus 1? Just reduce it. Even sometimes we even negotiate for people to even waive part of the deal, of the interest.
Because I understand that in the matter between the state and the African Automobile, when we spoke to one of their lawyers, Lawyer Bochi, and they said that the AG had filed some processes in court, so there's a hold on the execution of the judgment debt. And even for him, I mean, it was becoming increasingly difficult for them to even continue with the calculation because of the huge amount of money involved. So in such circumstances, how do you weave your way around it?
We have to go through the legal process, unless, of course, there is that kind of understanding that we need to settle our differences. Because if you have instances where one party is saying that I'm entitled to 10% per month, compounded. Look at the implications.
Right.
10% per month, so some of them 6.5% per month compounded. There will definitely be a challenge. But the other party will be saying, no, that's not a position so far as we are concerned. But as you said, if parties are ready to settle, why not?
We'll do that.
Or there are instances where you have to sit down with the other party, look at it, and come to an amicable resolution of a matter, and then we end all this kind of litigation in court.
Is this a major challenge at the ministry, the issue of judgment debt?
Judgment debt, as I already told you, is a border to us. And it's not really about contracts. Sometimes it arises out of actions of state actors. And I made a suggestion somewhere that it should be possible, I think it's legally also possible, that if you're a state actor and you go outside the scope of your authority, if you're a police officer, you decide to molest people outside the training that you've been given, and the person sues and there's judgment against you, the state must also make sure that that money we're going to pay, we pursue you so that we pay the money back to the state.
But let me just find out, do you get such cases, police brutalities and people seeking redress?
We have them. Where the police service is sued, the agent is sued and we have to go to court. Sometimes we try to even settle.
The most is about what abuse on the citizen by a police officer.
Sometimes. Sometimes it's about purely, you look at a situation where someone be not a police officer, I don't want to just bring them to the picture. A state officer may be driving a vehicle, then he knocks down someone on the road. Then the person sues, we have to pay. So this kind of judgment that we have small and bigger, small. But at the end of the day, what we are saying is that if we are an officer of the state, in whatever that you do, you should have in mind that if you intentionally or out of the scope of your authority do something that will occasion a form of judgment to the state will pursue you to get that money that is from you.
Right. So somebody is asking whether, for example, is there a schedule like this is how much we pay as judgment debt every month?
No, we don't have it. But I think if you take the budget every year, the budget that is presented to Parliament, you may have a section of the budget talking about the payment of judgment debts. But at one ministry, we do not have it. And
then somebody is also asking whether you want to know whether the state has been successful in retrieving every money it considered illegal payment to Alfred Agbesi Woyomi.
Our answer, no. Efforts have been made. Some recoveries have been made, but we've not recovered everything from him.
Do you know how much money is still outstanding?
I cannot be specific ratio, but what I can say is that some monies have been recovered from him. We also made an attempt to also do some execution when it comes to
of some of his property.
Yes. So we are still in the process, but he has not paid everything.
So those properties are in the hands of the state or they've been disposed of?
I don't know the update on it now. I need to check.
Okay. And then another person also says that is our properties in the United Kingdom safe because of this Trafigura matter?
Yes, that case too, we wrote to the Finance Ministry to enter into negotiations again with the judgment debtors. And my understanding
meaning
is that
we accept that we owe and we have to pay.
Yes. My understanding is that they are talking. But where they are now, I don't know the state of it. That's my understanding.
But our properties are safe?
Yes. But if you do not pay, at the end of the day, the judgment creditor may want to fine me. But I can give the assurance that the Finance Ministry is taking every step possible to ensure that negotiations are made. We agree on how much we have to pay and when and where, so that all those things will be taken care of.
So, Honorable, as we begin to wrap up, apart from the provision on compound interest and the conduct of officers assigned under this law with the responsibility to enter the state into contract with other parties, what are the other provisions that we should look out for?
Basically, these are the main provisions in this act. But moving forward, if there are other things that we need to do, let me commend Parliament. This bill went to them last year. It was passed last year. Then we have it signed this year. So, and when we went to Parliament, we didn't have any opposition. So it was bipartisan. We are a developing nation. New ideas may come up. When new ideas come up, maybe this act may be amended along the line. But this is a starting point.
And then the other matter is the criminal offences bill, which is also in Parliament.
Yes.
Is there any relationship between the two?
This one is about the civil side.
This one is about the civil side.
But the criminal side too, yes. We've also identified certain loopholes in the criminal side.
Like what example?
For example, it comes to the trial by jury. You have instances where you have 7 gentlemen and ladies sitting to try first degree like murder. In the event that one of them
is unavailable,
the case does not go on.
And for example, last year, you had a lot of strike by these people, and it affected the trial of cases, especially in the north.
Yes. We also have instances where the jury will sit in the case, they will finish maybe the day before judgment or summing up, one of them passes on. It means they have to start the case afresh, de novo. We want to cure that mystery by having alternate jurors.
Okay.
So you have 7, and then you may have other alternate jurors who also will be sitting to observe the process. The moment one of them is absent or is not able to participate due to ill health or death, then the alternate juror will step in, sit in, and then the case will proceed. So that's one of the areas that we're looking at. Then you also look at instances where people go to court and delays in trials. How do we handle it? Because we've also made that suggestion in the bill that the day-to-day hearing of cases must rather be encouraged. There must be timelines when it comes to the trial of criminal matters. Then there are also provisions on interlocutory appeals. The proposal in this bill is that you can file interlocutory appeal only when you have closed, or sorry, only when the state has closed its case.
Okay.
If, for example, a document is being tendered in the course of the trial and the accused person's counsel objects to it and is overruled, he has the right to go on appeal, but this bill is saying that, hold on, let's finish with the prosecution side before
we do that.
You do that. Yes. So there are other things
that you are looking into. Yes. Okay. All right. Honorable, thank you very much for coming. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for the education on the amended contract law. And folks, so that's the Deputy Attorney General, Alfred Chuayabua, and taking us through the amendment to the contract law, and the responsibility is on stage actors, and you are now clear as to what you can do if you are to enter the state into any contract. The rationale behind this bill is to avoid the payment of judgment debt and net compound interest. Now, still to come, locked up investment holders hit the streets today as they begin an 8-month-long protest to demand their matured investments.
Either you give them money, these institutions that are not able to operate, NDK Financial Services, SDC Financial Services, SIC Life Savings and Loans, and Bond Savings and Loans, give them support.
Welcome back to the Pulse here on Joy News. With me, Elton Brobe. Now, let's talk about bondholders and the frustration they are going through on a daily basis. Now, the Bank of Ghana promises to revoke licenses of financial institutions owing us. Now, that's according to the leadership of the Locked Up Investment Holders Forum. The group today went on the street to protest against the Bank of Ghana for failing to secure their investment with some financial houses and savings and loans companies. My colleague, James Aveji, was at the protest and has more in the following report.
This morning, members of the Locked Up Investment Forum have actually hit the street to protest, to put pressure on the Bank of Ghana to help retrieve their locked up funds with some financial houses and savings and loan companies across the country. These are persons who have invested with corporate finance entities. Some even invested with church corporate entities. All of them are saying that their monies over the period have been locked up with these entities without being able to retrieve them. Despite the back and forth with the Bank of Ghana, they have mentioned that they've not been able to get their monies, and so they are hitting the street. They started a walk actually from the premises of the NDK Financial Company around the Accra Sports Stadium and heading towards the Bank of Ghana to present their petition to Governor of the BOG. And so that's what is happening. If you look on some of the placards, they have the Bank of Ghana, don't kill investors with your poor supervision. Others are saying that the Bank of Ghana should wake up and do its job. Others say we want our money back. We worked for it. Bank of Ghana, you are the watchman of SDIs. Wake up. That is the information on some of the placards. We can try and have a conversation with some of them to know what their plight are. We would want to have a conversation with you. Tell us about your own situation with this host savings and loan companies and your lockup funds.
To be honest with you, right now I have to take my medication every other day. I can't afford to take it every day. I have to space it out. You can't live comfortably like you have planned to do. And it is not right at all. It is so unfair. This is monies that we worked to save. And we are punishing us for saving. Because without saving, without investments, business cannot go on in any country. So if we have saved, if we have sacrificed our little monies to save, why should we be punished for it?
We thought that we were going to the BOG to terminate the protest. Why are we here at the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial?
Well, according to the police, they have declared those areas as security zone. You recall that when the minority in Parliament held their protests, they stopped them at some point. And I'm told, the police told me it was at this point that they stopped them. So we don't want to force the police to go against their own rule. So we're even going to be at the roadside there, but they realized that the sand is too much. So they pleaded with these people to allow us here so that we can rest under this shade. So
but was that the original plan?
Yes.
The original plan was for you to come here?
To be at the roadside there, could converge there, and then wait for our leaders to go and come. But now they have allowed us to come inside here so that the sand shall be protected by the sand.
What's the next plan now?
The next plan is from the Bank of Ghana. We are going to the Ministry of Finance.
So not all of you are going to meet there?
No. 10 people are going to meet.
Who are you going to meet at the BOG?
The governor. We wrote that we want to meet the governor.
If you don't meet he himself, what would you do?
Well, as an organization, I know I've headed an institution before. So let them decide who is going to do that.
You have a petition you are going to present?
The petition is already with them since November. And we are just going to find out what is the governor doing about the petition and the proposal we have submitted for the resolution of this matter.
There are some key highlights in that petition and
the proposal, as we have proposed 2 methods or approaches. Either you give them money, these institutions that are not able to operate, NDK Financial Services, SDC Financial Services, SIC Life Savings and Loans, and Bond Savings and Loans. Give them support. Find some money. We have said that they should be talking to the development partners to allow them to even use part of the stability fund to do this kind of exercise. Give them some money, which can cover about 20% of investors' funds there, so that investors get about 20% of their funds. The rest, we are prepared to convert it into, let's say, a 4 or 3 year bond, and we are also prepared to even convert the balance into equity in those organizations, restructure the organizations, and let them work so that they can also continue to employ people. If you think that their services are no longer needed in this economy, then your law says even if you foresee that in the next 6 months someone will become insolvent, start the resolution process. So if you see that for 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, these people cannot work and they are insolvent, then revoke their licenses and take over the business funds and pay us as you did in 2017, 2018, when similar institutions, you revoke their license and you pay investors, we demand the same. That's all.
I mean, what will get you to back down?
Nothing. It's solution that will get us to stop. Until we get a solution, every 2 weeks, we are doing this, and we will do it till November ending. Allow the December for elections and Christmas. Then January will come for the second leg.
Finally, do we know the total number of the members of the group and how much has been locked up?
We know, but what is locked up, we don't know, because all the financial institutions have their reports to Bank of Ghana. Bank of Ghana can determine that so far, this is a quantum of amount that are locked up that I should find money to pay.
So how many are you?
We are, NDK alone has more than 6,000 clients. The rest, I can't put a figure on it. So if one organization alone has more than 6,000, then this 4 you can imagine.
Who joins me via Zoom as we try to understand this. James, you're welcome to the poll. So have they been able to, I mean, in the morning, you indicated that they were hoping to hold a meeting with the Bank of Ghana. And from your interaction with Dr. Anani, MP Anani, that meeting came off. Is that the case?
So finally, that meeting came off. Some members of the group were selected to go to the Bank of Ghana to go meet the governor. And after some hours, about 2 hours, they came back to tell us that indeed they have met the governor himself, his deputies, as well as some senior staff of the BOG, and have had some conversations with them on how to go about this whole issue. Dr. Edouard Anani shares with us the outcome of that meeting as well. He described as positive because one key thing they were looking for is to meet the governor himself to ask him questions on what they are up to. And so that has been achieved. And he shares the outcome of the rest of the activities they have been talking about with us as well.
Of the Bank of Ghana, we had a fruitful discussion with them. The governor was there, the two deputies were there, all the various departmental heads that are relevant for this matter were there. The conclusion that we had from that meeting is that the Bank of Ghana was prepared to revoke the licenses of these institutions. But they must first be assured by government that government has made provision for the payment of these investors' funds before they revoke, in short. So they are dealing with government for government to provide those monies for that. The government has not been able to do that as of now. So we too, when we go to the minister, that's the message we are going to send to the minister, that the government, the Bank of Ghana, can revoke the licenses today, provided government has made resources available to pay these investors, because we don't want the license to be revoked and tell investors that we should go and sit somewhere without getting our money. We want to make sure that once you revoke the license, you pay us as you pay the other people in 2017 and 2018. So we are now going to the minister and convey this that we have heard from Bank of Ghana to the minister and require and demand that the government do whatever it can to ensure that it can provide some money down for these institutions to be closed down and for investors to get their money back.
So James, finally they proceeded to the finance ministry, but some clash happened there. I mean, what brought about the skirmishes?
Yes, Elton. So even before we went to the finance ministry, Dr. Nani made us understand that he himself have been to the ministry earlier to present to them a letter informing the minister that they would be coming to see him today over the issue. And so when the BOG says that they are ready to implement the suggestions they've given them by revoking the licenses, and so they will need some level of assurance from the finance ministry. We then proceeded from the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park under the Scottish Sun with members through the Atamels High Street to the ministry to meet the minister. When we got there, there were already some both internal security persons as well as some police officers in uniform who were manning the gate of the finance ministry. And so we got there, and then they lined up on the street of the finance ministry, the street just in front of the ministry's gate, with their banners spread and the brass band singing to them. They played the national anthem, and then they attempted to enter through the gate. Then we had some exchange between Dr. Anani Entry and one person behind the gate in the premises of the ministry. And then we got there and realized that the security in the ministry have been preventing them from entering. And so there's been some level of exchange between he himself and the security personnel as to why they are preventing them from entry. The person inside was shouting that the minister is not there, there's nobody there who will see to them. And they also try to inquire whether it is the minister who says that he should tell them the information and why that is wrong for them to receive them the way they receive them. We can have a look at what really transpired between the two parties.
We want your name! We want your name!
What's the issue?
Otherwise, we will be coming here every day. Is it your minister who said we shouldn't come, or you are saying what's the authority for you to lock the place? That some people, we are not saying all of us are coming. 10 people are coming to meet the minister because we are written to the minister, and you are saying what? The minister is not, Master. You don't need to be working here. It means you don't even understand organization. You don't understand organization. You shouldn't be here. You should be fired. If I want to meet the minister and it's not there, there should be a human being who will represent the minister. I'm sorry you are employed here. You shouldn't be here because you don't understand. You don't understand organization. To say minister is not there, and so what?
You claim
the minister is not there. There's nobody in this. I'm announcing this to the whole world.
Doc, what's the issue?
Yes, I can't understand.
The information he's giving.
If you don't know work, don't come here and say, I'm a small boy.
He said we don't have any appointment.
I myself brought a letter here. No, not that you say. This is a public officer, so you should know. I was also a public officer. But now I retired. I don't want to use some words on you. You deserve some words, but I won't use it on you. When you go home, tell your wife that she should advise you.
Of course.
The issue is that we want to meet the minister and someone who I don't know the capacity in which he is talking. Say, I don't have a meeting with the minister because I haven't even informed the minister. And I brought a letter to the minister's office last Friday announcing that these people will come. The governor knows that the minister has received the letter and the minister knows we are coming here. Then somebody sitting here say, no, we don't have any appointment. We are waiting. I've forgiven them. Somebody say they are bringing some people to come and meet us. I'm waiting for some few minutes and see what happens.
So just briefly, were they able to meet the finance minister?
Yeah, so they've finally been allowed in, but about 5 minutes, they came back and told us that they've not been able to meet the finance minister. They were told that both the minister himself, his two deputies, some of them who have been vetted, not yet approved, as well as the chief director of the ministry and any other senior member or officer at the ministry is not around at the time. And so they haven't been able to meet any official of the ministry before we finally disperse. But this happens again in 2 weeks' time. And so they are hopeful that when they come back in 2 weeks' time, they'll be able to meet the minister to have a Georgia with him or on the way forward. Elton.
Thank you very much, James Savaji. He was with them when they walked, when they protested against the non-payment of their investment funds, and he brought in that report. But right here in the studio is Rodney Odoy, NDK customer. Mr. Odoy, welcome to the Pulse here on Joy News. So usually you should be home, maybe playing with your grandchildren, and here you are fighting to get what really is yours. Tell me your story.
Playing golf. Unfortunately, I was with the doctor at the first at the Bank of Ghana offices, and then at the ministry as well. And
disappointed that you were unable to meet the minister, even though you had informed them that you were coming there today.
Completely disappointed because, like the doctor indicated, there had been a conversation between the BOG and the ministry, so they knew that we were going to be there. And we have dealt with him before. I remember when we were dealing with the issue of bonds.
Right.
And he was very nice when he was the Minister of State. So I'm surprised he chose not to see us this time.
But, this struggle to get what is yours.
Yes.
How do you describe it? That you have to endure the impact of the sun on you this early morning whilst you should be resting at home?
Is such a huge shame. I decided to invest. I think I decided to diversify. I had some monies in bonds, and then I put some money here as well many years ago. And the whole idea is that after I'd come on pension, I'm on pension now, I would be able to have some extra funds to supplement my pension. And then, unfortunately, you find yourself in this situation. Your kids are still at home.
Right.
They should be out, but they aren't jobs, and if they can't find jobs, they better go to school and get some more qualifications. So you are still paying fees, you're still feeding people, and you don't have enough money. All the money you plan to use, you can't get access to. It's a shame, and maybe I'm one of the lucky ones because I was with someone on dialysis, and others like that. Some have gone because
they couldn't raise the money to take care of their health.
No, they couldn't raise the money to take care of their health situation, and so they succumbed to their illnesses. So once I have the strength to do so, I suppose we'll keep on fighting.
But is there any assurance coming from anywhere that eventually you will have your money?
I won't say there is any assurance because it appears that the government doesn't have the money. And if they are going to have it, it will probably have to come from our development partners. And that is still open. And one doesn't know if we would secure those funds or not. But we have no choice. We just have to keep on fighting.
So were you part of those that met the BOG?
Yes, I was.
And what went on? What discussion went on in terms of your concerns and the readiness of the BOG to help resolve this matter? Because revoking the license of these companies does not resolve your matter.
Indeed. He indicated that he was concerned. I mean, he and his deputies expressed a concern, and they did point out this same thing. And then they also pointed out the fact that there's this, I think, investment protection insurance scheme.
Financial Stability Fund that they were hoping. Yes.
There's an insurance scheme as well that is supposed to protect investors. But the most you can get, he said, was like 1,000 cedis or something like that.
For every one of you?
Yes. So
1,000 Ghana cedis every month?
I don't know. Once, and that's it. I mean, so
one-off payment.
Yes.
1,000 Ghana cedis.
Yes, something like that, or even less. So I don't know why we should have such a provision in place since it's so inadequate. So there is that, and then there's the fact that if they revoked the license of these entities, you go through the court processes. You use the person the government has appointed to look after the assets, and it takes a long time.
Right.
And we may not even be able to find enough to pay all of us. And so he thought that appealing to government to find some money to deal with this situation like it was done in 2016
right.
is a good thing. And he indicated that they have been talking the Bank of Ghana and the Finance Ministry about this. But no resolution has come up yet to this. So basically, we understood that the resolution would have to come from the Ministry.
The Ministry of Finance.
Yes. And so, in fact, going forward, we probably will not be going to the Bank of Ghana anymore.
Whether you go to the Ministry of Finance?
We'll go to the Ministry.
But it wouldn't be the first time.
No, it won't be the first time.
Because last 2 years, you virtually made it your home.
Yes, we did, the bondholders.
And then some payments came.
Some good news came. And luckily, not just for us, but for all others that had invested in bonds as well. We're hoping that this will be done, because if it's not done, I don't know what example is set for our kids and those in employment still.
Of course.
Where are you going to put your money? Would you put under your pillow, or would everybody buy land or houses in East Lagos?
The thing is also that, I mean, when the money is deducted as source and then credited to the fund, I mean, you have no hand in how it's utilized. And so when there's difficulty tomorrow, you are eventually caught up in whatever you didn't plan for.
Indeed, and that's why I was with people from TOR and other organizations like that had, put money in there for their employees, lots of employees, and unfortunately they find themselves in this situation.
I mean, the difficulty I'm trying to appreciate is that, I mean, for persons like you, you work with the Tema Oil Refinery for several years.
No, I didn't work for. Okay. I worked for a mining company.
Okay, a mining company, right? So obviously, you were in a very gainful employment.
Yes.
And then you are out. You are out on retirement.
Yes.
Which will affect everybody. It will affect me at some point in my life. Now, you have some former chief executives, former managing directors. In fact, Mr. Eduan and them was a former head of the Security and Exchange Commission.
Yes.
And these are people who actually devoted their entire life to the service of this nation. And
Exactly.
this is the treatment you get in retirement.
Exactly, it's such a shame. And he is best pleased, actually, because they actually fought hard to deepen the financial space to ensure that lots of people invested. Because I know that compared to our neighbors, we don't invest as much as they do.
Yes.
Both in insurance and savings. And, you know, savings, mobilization of funds from that end is the key thing for development. And so, in a sense, we are behind, and now we are going to fall even further behind, because there's trouble in all our sub-region, but we seem to be facing the butt of it somehow.
Because if people in your category are facing this difficulty, then I'm wondering the thousands that are what I want to describe, or maybe down for them.
Yes. Yes, I mean, so it's even much worse.
Yes.
And so I remember when we started this process, when there was a little money, we were all agreeable that those who had, I think there was some 10 million cedis or something that was available to NDK. We said those who had funds up to a certain amount,
you should pay them off.
Be paid off, so that at least, you know, they would go off. So now you've taken care of some of them, and now you have people who have more, and they didn't steal these sums. They are not kickbacks. They are from the sweat and blood, and unfortunately, they can't get access to these funds.
So, from your own perspective, what is the recommendation to have this resolved, if not permanently, but comfortable, such that you be able to live your life the way you want, whilst you fight the other cause?
In fact, one of the proposals that the doctor came up with, and I'm full support of that, is that they could secure some funds to pay a portion, say 20%, cash up front. That would take care of a lot of people and a lot of the issues that they have. And then a portion of it, 50-60%, could be in bonds. Bonds don't have a very good name now, but we'll be happy to take some money in bonds payable over, say, the next 4 years or something. And even a balance of it probably in equities, so that we would be equity partners in some of these companies to ensure that they are properly run to the benefit of not just ourselves, but the whole country. So we think that if this minimum is done, it will be helpful to all of us.
So before I let you go, so you are back on the streets in 2 weeks?
Yes. We have no choice. We have to keep on doing this until something gives.
And the plan now is to go to the finance ministry and get them to commit to something.
Yes, that's the plan. To go to the finance ministry and get them to commit to look at these proposals we've given them, which we believe is a good way of getting out of this situation in which we are, and agree to it.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for coming and sharing your story with us this afternoon.
Thank you
This
very much.
is the pulse here on Join Us. So we have been looking at the demonstration that took place today by some bondholders, pensioners, bondholders, and they are demanding, their investments, basically. And so we'll follow up with this matter to bring you a response if we get one from the Ministry of Finance. But the Kwale Klote Municipal Assembly is set to prosecute individuals engaged in open defecation and garbage dumping on a piece of land between the Independence Square or the Blaster Square and Asunjue Park, which is the burial site of former President John Evans Atamels. In an interview with Marcel Agbagba, the Municipal Chief Executive Samuel James Ni Ajetaria announced that the Assembly is collaborating with the Ghana Tourism Authority to revamp the area and put an end to this troubling practice. We'll hear from the MC shortly, but first, Marcel Agbagba's report for our filth exhibition series, which highlighted the alarming situation.
The Independence Square and the Independence Arch, a reminder of Ghana's freedom from her colonial masters. Right beside it is the piece of land which also serves as a reminder to some unpatriotic citizens of their freedom. Freedom to openly defecate and dump their garbage. It seems the authorities have found the perfect spot for a sit-down protest against waste management. Or perhaps it is the city authorities' way of saying, Happy Independence Day, enjoy the sights and smell. Right here, we confronted a man who had just finished defecating on this hallowed ground.
So why were you defecating here?
Through the defecating is that low land, they've been shitting there for a long time. And it was like boiler, the rubbish dam. Some people are shitting in this water. But me, I know that some are using it to wash. I will not do that.
Why were you defecating?
Defecating here, if you are defecating here, those who are living around here, they will not call it to be a crime because it's a low land. And very soon, you will see people who will bring this in. It was even deep down. Because of the rubbish dam, you see that it is filling.
Do you think it's bad, especially because this place is very close to the Independence Square, and just right behind the walls of the Independence Square, you are defecating? You don't think it's wrong?
I know that it's wrong, but here like this, it's very, very wrong. I know that here too is not right. In case they are to do here, clear here, no, it's not right. But the way it was bush, if you are here, no one will call it to be a crime. That's why we are shitting there. So that's why we are defecating there. But here, if you see a person shitting here, you know that person is not normal.
For citizens who come here, it is to celebrate our nation's freedom. But what about our freedom from this mess? Perhaps city authorities want to give tourists and patrons a 360 independence celebration. After watching the display and exhibition of our culture and all that we stand for at the Black Star Square, you can come here for a part 2. This time, a filth exhibition. Chata Winfred Annan is a resident.
Immediately when they removed the presidency from the Usu Castle to the Jubilee House, that is fine. Immediately they could have brought the national security people to the Usu Castle so that they can keep this place clean. But now, see, if you see the rubbish and where the people go to toilet here, it's very bad. There's nothing going on here. They say nobody should come to the beach, and people are going to private all over. If you turn and look at where the rubbish are, you see everything. So for me, it's terrible. Where the Independence Square is and where they go to private, I mean, it's not good. And so they're supposed to do something about it. And so if you look at the Asomdwe Park and where the people are going to the private, my man, the big EDSS should do something about it.
Let's celebrate independence in every sense of the word, from freedom to cleanliness. Join us in our mission to turn this filth exhibition into a showcase of cleanliness and pride. Maxwell Agbagba for Joy News.
Well, there is a response, and the Koliklote Municipal Assembly has expressed concern about the ongoing situation. The Municipal Chief Executive Samuel James Niaje Tewia says the Assembly has partnered with the Ghana Tourism Authority to enhance the development of the area. He also mentioned that the Assembly will take legal action against individuals caught engaging in open defecation and garbage dumping on the land.
This has probably been going on over the years, but we are taking steps to make sure we bring that place to a level that the tourists that come there will appreciate even more. So there are a few initiatives that are in the pipeline. I'm sure when you got there, you saw that, for example, that's on Dream Park, there's some construction work going on. If you entered, you would that is Ghana Tourism Authority and ourselves collaborating to bring the place up to a level. And there will be places of convenience for people to use if they happen to go there. And then Nationalism Park, I'm sure you see the place ordered off. Yeah. So we are gradually bringing those places up to international standards that tourists that come to this country can go to these places. But this open defecation thing is been there for some time, but it's not something that you people do it openly for you to see that something like this is going on. We often, it's after it has happened before we do come across, and then we have to take steps to claim the place. But with these new interventions, it will be difficult. The space will not be there. The place will be properly staffed, etc., to make sure the amenities and things we put at the place can be used. To promote this country. So I think the work there will be even much better. But like I said, with open defecation, often some people hide and do their business, and then we find out later, and then we have to clean it up. So one, through the Gamma project, a lot of the houses in that community were supposed to take advantage of the scheme to build their own toilet facilities in their homes, right? A lot of them did, but not every household. So we are on the lookout. If people are found to have to be engaged themselves in those things, they will be dealt with. And we are one of the assemblies that have taken a lot of people to court on sanitation matters and things of the sort. And there are records there from the Mayor's department to point to this fact. So we are on the job, we are working on it, but it is a very big problem. And we believe educating, creating awareness for the community to help us deal with such issues is a step in the right direction.
Well, the head of waste management at Accra Metropolitan Assembly, Solomon Noy, says the AMA is also under-resourced, pledges it is working around the clock to deal with the sanitation situation, especially here in the capital, Accra.
Very soon, we will be having a sanitation court that will be commissioned in our jurisdiction. We used to have them, but with the split of AMA into other sub-metros that became autonomous and municipals on their own, we found out that the traveling distance from Accra to the coast at La and other areas was a bit of a disadvantage. And some of these operations, we need to have the courts right within our vicinity. So very soon, plans are far advanced so that I'm sure by next month or so, we should have our sanitation court, which will be situated at the old AMA head office behind or adjacent to the Bank of Ghana. Definitely, all the cases will be rapidly prosecuted. But the current program is still ongoing to make sure that we inspect homes and houses to ensure that they have toilet facilities.
So let's look at generally dealing with filth in Accra. What's the plan?
Yes, so it's good that you situate the discussion in the right perspective. So if you wouldn't mind, I want to take you through some analysis. By the nature of Accra's topography, Accra is low-lying. If I say Accra, I'm talking about the AMA, Kolikulote, Zablekuma, all those along the beaches. And by default, all the secondary and tertiary drains upstream. If I say secondary and tertiary, they are the drains that are connecting houses and other roofs, and they all empty into storm drains. And most of the storm drains use the Odo River and some other river bodies as their final outfall. And because they are low-lying, we are low-lying and somewhere below sea level. Currently, in terms of our waste management practices, despite the combination of public-private partnerships we have and the logistics that has been put in place, it is currently inadequate to the extent that we are doing an average of about 70% waste collection every day within the entire city of Accra, spanning from Amasaman all the way down to AMA itself.
Program. Remember, you can also be your own journalist. You can also be your own reporter. If you come across any dumping sites, anything that is unpleasant to you, just take your phone, record it, video, pictures, and send to us, and we will give you the necessary credit. For more stories, log on to our website, myjoyonline.com. Stories making rounds. Supreme Court throws out injunction application against approving the Akufo-Addo's new ministers. We also have PURC updates Ghanaians on its orders to ECG. Well, my name is Elton Brobe. We shall be back tomorrow, same time at 3 p.m. with another exciting edition of The Pulse. Let's Talk Showbiz is up next on your television. You have a good evening.